Hi guys, welcome to this episode. Today I'm going to be doing a review on this Canon 7D. I'm also going to be giving away one of these Canon 7Ds as soon as I get to 10,000 subscribers. To enter the competition, all you need to answer is, when was the Canon 7D launched? Which year was the Canon 7D launched? And all you need to do is just email me the question, and when I get to that 10,000 question, I will pick somebody to give away one of these Canon 7Ds. Okay, so let's get started. So obviously this is Canon 7D. If I switch it on, which is, it's already on, so if I switch it on, there it's on. If I click on this button, I've got no SD card, so it will show up like this. Okay, so there are a few buttons here that you need to be aware of, which is like the Q button. So if I click on the Q button, the menu will pop up and you've got all your features. It's not touchscreen, this one, because it is an old camera. It doesn't have those capabilities of sort of doing touchscreen features. So if you click on the Q button, you can sort of hover through all the various settings. So from your shutter to your aperture to your ISO to your exposure compensation to your one shot to your standard filters, kind of like standard monochrome, to your your focus points. So it allows you to pivot. This little icon allows you to pivot through all these different icons. And this one here is quite useful. So if you click on this, you can customize your settings. So if you want to sort of set certain things on certain buttons, you can sort of change things around. So if I select that one, you can have different settings for that. Okay, you can also go back to the menu and reset all these settings back to default as well, and you can also go to your default settings to change. What I do like, it gives me a little visual. So for example, that one there, if I select that one, I can have TV or AV mode. So if I put TV mode, now this wheel allows me to change the shutter. I think I changed it to. Okay, go back to Q button, select this again, and I can literally go back and change it back to aperture or shutter, whichever one I want to set it to. Alright, so that's a feature that some of you probably have never used. It is on the camera, and it is a very nice one to sort of play around with. So that's your menu. So if I click on menu, that's my menu. If I go to I'm in filming mode. So if I click on filming mode, or if I click on photographic mode, I can pivot through the two formats. Okay, here you've got some buttons. You've got your menu. So this menu will take you to your main menu, and then in here you've got all the different things that you need to be aware of. So from quality to exposure, so these are all your settings that you probably need to fiddle around with. Now I am in manual mode at the moment, so if I pivot this camera forward, okay, I am at the moment in manual mode, which is that one. Okay, you got bulb, you got aperture shutter, you got creative auto, and the green box is basically your auto. So I am in actually manual mode at the moment. The reason why I'm in manual mode is because I want to show you a lot of the features that's available to you in this camera. So I'm in menu, and in menu there's a lot of features that you should be aware of. So if I go to, for example, the first icon, the red ones are mainly to do with sort of exposure and grid and formats. Okay, the two blue is to do with sort of kind of like file formats, like printing, file sizes, and the last three is to do with your camera configuration. So you might want to leave those three, to tell you the truth, and the four that you might want to play around with is these four here. So if I go to the first one, you've got so again, this little toggle here allows you to pivot through all these things, and it shows in red. So if I click on this one, you can change your file format. Now you can sort of hover it through like this, or you can use your wheel up here as well. So your wheel allows you to change your raw files like this, and your sort of kind of wheel over here allows you to change your JPEGs format. Okay, so it doesn't do it both at the same time. You have to select each one, so it gives you a little visual there as well. So basically that little thing there is basically that little thing there is your little kind of wheel up at the top, and it allows you to pivot through your settings up here as well. So if I go back to menu, so that's what that does. Red eye, so if you want to take red eye on or off, again click on and off, pivot through like this, so you can select your red eye on or off. Okay, go back to my Q button, sorry, my menu. I've got beep. So basically the beep is a little, if you put that on, there'll be a little beep that will go off when you take the picture. I keep it on sometimes because I want to know whether the camera's doing the job. release shutter without card. Select that, enable, disable. I have that enabled because I want the shutter to go off when the card is in the camera. Review the picture. So most people, I tend to leave it on 2 seconds because I want to see my pictures quite quickly, but I don't want them to be sort of visible for a long period of time. So I usually leave it on 2 seconds. You can put it on 4 seconds if you want. Flash control. So this has got a built-in flash. You can enable it or disable it if you want. Okay, you got built-in flash function settings. Now these will work if you've got a flash gun on here, and then you can set the flash gun in relation to your camera. So they won't do anything at the moment because there isn't any flash gun on it at the moment. Okay, so that's the first icon. Second icon, exposure. So in this one you've got your exposure compensation. So if I go to this one here, and again it shows me a demonstration. So if I select it, now it's not doing anything because it's not allowing me to select it on this particular option. But if you were to do it again, it will give you a visual here to change the exposure compensation here with these. So basically that one there, that little wheel is basically that one, and you can set that as well. Light optimizer. This optimizes the density of the light within your environment. I tend to leave it on standard. It just gives it a bit more light balance within your imagery. You can use this if you want. I tend to, not really sort of fiddle around with that very often. Your Calgon is probably quite important. So this is your white balance. Obviously photography white balance is quite important, and you can flick through it like this with your wheel. So if you want to select your white balance, put it in auto, you can. If you click back on the little in your wheel in the middle, you can select different ones. You can also click on your Calgon, and again with the top wheel over here, you can increase and decrease your Calgon up here as well. So you can take it all the way up to, let's have a look how much it goes up to. Oh, 100,000. Okay, is that 100,000? 10,000. Sorry, 10,000. My eyesight's gone a bit, Tate Truth. So 10,000 it goes up to. So if I click back on that, go back to custom. I need a card in there to custom white balance. White balance shift. You can shift the white balance a little bit to different element, to different weights. Tate Truth. So if I go back to that one, and you can sort of pivot this around and move it around like this, and this just gives you another balance of color when the pictures are being taken, and you can move this around as well by hovering it up and down like this, and it will just balance out your color balance. Again, I would suggest if you really need to use this, use it, but it's something that I don't really use very often. Tate Truth, your color space I would personally put it on Adobe RGB. Most likely you're going to be taking your pictures into Bridge or into Lightroom or into Photoshop, so it's probably worth you putting it into Adobe RGB, red, green and blue. Okay, picture style. Now this is quite useful. So here you've got all your different settings for your so you got neutral, you got fade, you got monochrome, and in these, if I select one of these, for example portrait, I can actually let me see if this does it, because I remember doing this once and it worked. Now if I select that one and I set, no, it doesn't let me do it. So these you can just set them. Now you can't quite change it in terms of what they are. You have to select one of these like that, okay, and then that will select the picture style. So the picture style is whether you want it black or white, you want it faithful, you want it standard. These are kind of like, so you want it landscape. So if you do landscape, you do natural, you do monochrome, you do portraits. You might want to select portraits if you're going to shoot portrait photography. That's just basically your file size, and you delete your dust. So if you want to delete anything on your software, you can delete it. I'm going to cancel that. And the last icon I want to sort of talk about is this one. So this one is your quick mode, your live mode, and your live mode. So these are basically autofocus modes that you can have on your camera. You got your grid, so your rule of third. If you want it on, a bigger grid, you can have it on that. And this is obviously your file size. So this camera, is a bit old. It goes up to 1080. It's not 4K or 8K or anything like that. So it goes up to a standard size. I think it still does a pretty decent job, Tate Truth, on those sizes. Sound recording, you definitely want that on. Don't switch that off, because when you're filming, you will definitely want that on. Silent shooting mode. I've never used this, Tate Truth. I usually use it. I leave it on mode 1, and it doesn't really do anything I've seen to change anything that I'm doing in Tate Truth. So metering timer. So I leave it on 4 seconds, which is enough time, I would say, for metering. So those are your 4 icons for your menu mode, shall I say, your file sizes, your color balance, color optimization, color shift, Adobe RGB color, and picture portrait style. So that's all to do with color. That's all to do with file size and red eye and shutter release. Third one is basically, I would say, review everything that in the last 2. And the third one is your grid formats, the format of how you're shooting, what you're shooting on your camera. So those 4 are quite important. The next 2 is to erase images. So you can actually rotate things, and there's no pictures in there at the moment, but you can rotate things as well. If I go to image size, you can click on image size and look at the size of the image. You can print to order. I've never used that, Tate Truth, and this camera does not have Wi-Fi. Some people have been asking me, does this camera have Wi-Fi? No, it doesn't have Wi-Fi. It's a very old camera, and unfortunately that feature is not available to this model. So if I click on Q button again, menu, and I go to highlights disabled. Now this I don't really play around with, Tate Truth. I just leave it as it is. Most of the things are disabled. Here's your auto power on and off. So you might want to conserve power, and really this is basically how long the camera will stay on whilst you're not shooting. So really, you leave it. I would suggest you leave it on 1 minute, because you might want to go back to your camera within that minute if you're shooting high density photographs and you want your camera to kind of stay on. But you really want to keep it as low as possible to conserve power, particularly with batteries. A lithium battery on one of these cameras, if you're using it, in my experience, continually on a long period of time, it usually sort of lasts for about 2-3 hours. But they are sort of kind of like used extensively. Auto rotate, so your picture's rotating. You definitely want to have it on your computer and on your smartphone, so you want to have all that on. And format, well, there's no card again in there, so I can't show you that one. And folders, you might want to select a folder that you might want your pictures to go into. LCD brightness, some people like their thing to be quite bright, and again, you can make this brighter, so you can have it manual, and you can sort of do that. Actually, and you can sort of increase and decrease it like this, or you can just have it auto and do that. Okay, so it depends on how you like to pivot this through to get the right level of brightness. Sometimes when you're shooting outdoors and you want people to see your photographs, you might want it really bright to show clients, look at your amazing pictures. Obviously, time and date, you can configure that to what the day you're shooting, etc. So if I go back, language, it gives me to keep it on English, because if you put it on, I think this is Cantonese, possibly, I'm not sure, Japanese maybe, I'm not sure. One of you guys can probably tell me. If you put it on that, then all your menu will come out in that language, and you'll get confused with what's going on. So leave it on English. PAL, so that's the file format. So if you're shooting in the UK, you probably want to leave it in PAL or Europe. If you're shooting in sort of America or sort of South America, you might want to put in NTSC, because that's the file format that they film with. So you might want to put it on that. I will leave it on PAL because I'm the UK, and you can also clean your sensor manually. So do this every single so often, because your sensors need a little bit of a clean down, and all you do is that, and it will do its thing. These little sort of icons will pop up, and it will say it's cleaning the sensor. It's just a bit of housekeeping for your camera, really. So yeah, that's that one. Battery info. Some people want to know. So this one's got recharge performance 75% at the moment. Again, if I click on menu, I've got battery info options. I can select these things, display electrical level. I tend to leave all these on because I want to see where my battery is. Display shooting functions, because then I know I can see how much battery I've got left. Camera user settings, I can register this. I can clear all the settings I've just fiddled around with. So if I click on clear settings, on mode, dial 1, C1 and 2 and C3. So these are settings are set up on here, really. Okay, I can clear those. I'll keep them on there. I can register them as well. So if I register them, I can register one at C1, C2, and then if I'm shooting similar things all the time, I can just put it in C1, C2, C3. Okay, those are just settings that I've set for my camera. Copyright information, enter all. So you can actually put in your. Now I've never used this, Tate Truth. Let me have a little fiddle around with this. So okay, how do I do this one? Let me try that again. So menu, copyright information, enter. You can, by the looks of it, enter your name. So if you're taking photographs and you want those pictures to be copyrighted and you don't want people to be obviously sort of fiddling on your pictures, you can actually put your company name into this. And that will allow you to have copyright ownership through the data of that image, I assume. Okay. And again, enter the copyright details. So you can do the same thing here as well. Now, I've never used this, so if somebody does get onto the camera, have a little play with this, please do shout out. Okay, so copyright information. There you go. Right, menu. This one is to do with your exposure and autofocus, and it doesn't really. Let me go to select. It doesn't really do anything, and I'm not too sure how this one works, so I'm going to leave that one because I've not really ever used that. And the last one, it really is your quality of your image, which goes back to the original. And you got your beep on, and you got your menu settings, so you can register them. You can sort them by quality. You can delete all items, or delete all registered items. So everything that you've registered on this camera, you can actually delete it all as well. So there are a lot of features within that menu. Some you will never ever use. Like some of these I've never used, I'll be honest with you. Like that one there, for example, I've never ever used that, Tate Truth. So you might see the benefit in that in terms of what you do for your photography or your living. But for me, that's never been something that I've really used, and it's not been a feature that I've sort of used at all, Tate Truth. So yeah, guys, that was a review. Menus, Q button, to go through various settings on this camera. Any questions, please do post, and I'm happy to respond to your questions. Thanks for watching, and remember, enter the competition. Need to get to 10,000 subscribers, and I'm going to be giving away one of these to the person that gets. Once I hit 10,000, I'll choose somebody. Enter the competition by answering when was this camera launched, which year. Alright, thanks a lot, guys. See you later. Bye bye.